All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope that those you had some good conversations and shared some good stories and were able to connect with each other. I do that also to give you all a chance to kind of warm up a little bit and get more comfortable, and to emphasize the power. I'm sure you all felt it at some point, the power of connections and connecting with other social workers and hearing their stories and the little things you do, even showing up at a workshop like this, can make a big difference. So thank you for engaging that. I appreciate that. Let's go on. We have one. Well, we'll do another activity towards the end. Um, but the goal for today. So the goal for today is to explore how to use our leadership to advocate effectively for policy change and to mobilize our communities for long-lasting transformation. Okay. And by the end of the workshop today, I hope to accomplish these three things, which is to define what social work leadership is. I think social work leadership is different than what we may perceive or what we may have learned about what leadership is. And obviously, there are a lot of people out there that think and write and talk about being leaders, but I think there's something more specific. I think there's something unique to us as social workers and as a profession and the leadership that we can bring to our communities. I want to translate social work principles and skills into leadership, into that definition of leadership to show you how you can apply what you already know and what know how to do into leadership, and then to apply this leadership to macro practice, whether it's in your agency, your community, your neighborhood, or with other institutions like government that you interact with or want to interact with within the community. And don't forget that uh, if you have any questions along the way, just drop it in the chat and I'll answer it after the workshop is done. I'll send you an email with my answers to your questions. Okay, so just drop it in the chat. So here's my definition, not my definition, but the definition I want to share with you on leadership. And I think it's probably one of the best ones that I found that really apply to social work. And that is the process of leadership is the process of influencing others to understand and to agree about what needs to be done and how to do it. And the process of facilitating individual and collective efforts to accomplish shared objectives. And that's from a book by I don't know how to pronounce his name, Yukel, I think. And that was Leadership in Organizations. That was the last version was 2013, and he's like a community psychologist. So I think it's a great definition because it tells us a couple of things that's applicable for us as social workers. One, that leadership is a process. Okay, it's not something you have. It's not something that, but it is a process. Leadership involves influencing others, right? And I imagine that many of you are here to figure out how to improve your ability to influence others because that's necessary in if you want change, right? And leadership happens within the context of a group. It involves goal attainment, and that all of these goals, the goal attainment, the goals that you want are shared by members of a group. Okay, so I'm going to hit on all these different processes really quickly to show you how this works from my experience in local government. As I mentioned earlier, I was a council member here in the city of Artesia for almost 12 years, and so I want to apply this leadership to local government. Okay. You all have representatives in local government, usually at the city level, if you're part of an incorporated city or town. If you're not, there are many people that live in areas that are not incorporated. Then maybe it could be your county supervisor, or if you're out there in Louisiana, it could be your parish, which is the same as a county. So we all have these um, elected representatives. And from my estimation and observation and experience, this is how things should work, right? That you have these four different pieces of the local government apparatus in your community. You have the public, which is you and I, all of us who either live in these cities, work in these cities, visit these cities, own businesses in these cities. These, we are all members of the public, whether we're voters or not, right? We are members of the public. Then you have the electeds, right? The people that you elect to represent you on that city council or on that in that local government. You have a chief executive, which can be different for different cities, but in my city and in a lot of cities here in Los Angeles County, the chief executive is someone who's hired by the council to run this day-to-day operations of the city. It's like the executive director or the CEO of the city government, right? In other cities, like larger cities like Los Angeles or Chicago, where they have a directly elected mayor, that mayor has his own executive office, right? That kind of runs the city. And that's more like the federal government, right? Or the state government that has a governor and the executive branch that kind of runs that city. Okay, so it really depends on your city. And then of course, you have all the staff people that are hired by that city. And so the electeds really set the vision. They adopt budgets and hold the whole system accountable. The chief executive implements the vision of the council and policies and programs, and they hold staff accountable. The staff actually provides services, are the ones that provide services directly to the public. And the public, you and I, we're the ones that elect and provide input to elected officials. And then you see the arrows in the middle here. All of these folks interact with everybody else, right? This is the way um, I believe that local government should be working, right? I think this is a aspirational figure here, right? This is how things should work. Everyone has a piece, a role, has a part to play in this process of how local government functions. And eventually, for all of us, what we're concerned about, when we think about it like from the policy point of view, we're thinking about the services that are actually provided by the government to the people, right? And many of you are familiar with those services. Local government, for example, is in charge of law enforcement. Local government's in charge of the streets and the maintenance of the streets and the public safety, parks and recreation, public transportation, um, and senior services, park and recreation services. So cities and local governments deliver a lot of services. From a policy perspective, we can try to influence that, right? Um, but so this is the kind of in the perfect world. I would like us to get to this perfect world, and we need to contribute to that because this is what I found in my 12 years and longer of being involved in local government. This is not the way local government works, in my estimation. Okay? This is how local government works, really, in my experience. Works like this. Okay? The public, most of us, could be those of you who are here and want to get more involved, right? But most people do not provide any input to the government, to local government in this way. They don't talk to their elected officials. They don't interact with anyone at City Hall. They don't talk to anyone on the park and rec staff or the people in the city that are providing services, cleaning the streets, to law enforcement. Nobody interacts with anyone because we're just waiting for the government to give us stuff, right? But what happens if government works the way I am showing you on the screen right now, where the public's not involved? Well, I know you can all figure that out. What happens is that the government gets to, they're all collaborating with each other to provide a service without your input. That's what's happening. We all wonder why government does the things it's doing or why it prioritizes certain things is because we're not involved. We assume that if we elect these folks, they're going to know what we want. And I'm telling you, having been an elected official for 12 years, that is not true. I do not know what you want unless you tell me. I cannot knock on people's doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to touch base with people to ask them what they think they want me to do. Okay. All right. So you have to be involved. Okay. So this is process that I'm talking about. Leadership is a process, right? So if you don't understand how you are going to fit into this process, right, then you are not going to be effective. You're not going to be a leader if you don't know how to influence or be involved or engage in this process. So the public has a role. You can be a leader in the within the public, for example, right? As a social worker, you can build relationships in your among your neighbors, your community. You can start a neighborhood watch group. You can you can reach out to other committed, like-minded folks in your community to talk about what's happening in your communities and neighborhoods. You can write like community organizing. Many of us social workers, somewhere along the line in your education, learned about organizing and being involved in communities. We can do that, right? So we can exercise our leadership purely amongst the public, right? But that's a necessary part of how local government works. So we need leaders in the public realm. We also need we also need leaders who are able to understand and interact with staff of our cities, right? You can talk to if your kid is on a soccer team at the local city park and you see park and rec staff running around, right? Why can't you interact with them and talk to them and find out, hey, what do you do with the city? How does this all work? Where, how much do you have in your budget? Why can't we have more programming? Why can't we have additional programming or more specific programming in the park, right? So you can provide leadership in that realm by informing and interacting with city staff, including the chief executive in my city, and I see it in cities all over the place, our electeds are very happy to connect you with staff because those are the folks that actually carry out the services, and especially with the chief executive, right? So there's a way that you can be a leadership in that regard. But the one I want to really focus on, because this is where I think most of us are a little intimidated about um, using our leadership to amongst and with and interacting with our the elected officials. I know many of us think they're very intimidating, or you might believe they don't want anything to do with us. Why would they want to talk to us? They don't care about my issues. Why would they want to listen to me? And I'm telling you, you need to get rid of those perceptions about elected officials. Okay? Because the one thing I know about elected officials, speaking from a former elected official, the one thing that's always in the back of their mind is reelection. That is the most, they won't tell you that, but I will tell you that in the back of every elected official's mind is reelection. So that gives you leverage and that gives you power that you don't recognize because 99% of the elected officials that I know and that I've talked to will never pass on an opportunity to talk to a constituent. They never will. Okay? So don't shy away from reaching out to or getting to know your local elected officials. Besides, do you really know them? What do you know about them, right? Your elected officials, and I'm telling you, I've met a lot of them in my career. They're just like you and me. They're people just like you and me, right? They have families, they're working, they're trying to do something good, significant in their communities, all right? Um, so there's no reason why we shouldn't get to know them, but we could provide leadership in interacting with electeds and sharing with them our experience in our own communities, whether it's as a social worker with the children that we work with in the local community schools, or whether it's other things going on in the neighborhood, the unhoused and homelessness, or mental health issues, whatever it is, you can provide leadership in that realm. Because, as you all know who are social workers, this comes directly out of our code of ethics. It says we value, a principle is the importance of human relationships. And social workers understand that relationships between and among people are an important vehicle of change. That is part of our code of ethics. It's written in the code of ethics. Social workers understand that relationships between and among people are an important vehicle for change. So it's the relationships that I want to emphasize here, right? Because we as social workers, this is what we're trained to do. And this is a very, very powerful tool that we have that I'm telling you everybody wants and needs that doesn't have relationship skills, right? You probably have worked with many of them, but you know that those are essential skills. I hate when people call them soft skills. They're not soft skills, they're difficult skills to learn and to master and to practice, right? But we have them as social workers. We have those skills. So we need to use those skills uh, within the public, amongst government staff and elected officials, because that's where we can build our influence to pursue change in social justice. Okay. So let me give you an example of this, just to, keep going in terms of elected officials here and why you shouldn't be so intimidated. I know Alicia put in the text that the United States Senator of Maine will openly avoid constituents. You know why? Because she can. Because she's a United States Senator. But if you're a local city council person in your city, they can't avoid you. They live in your community. You probably see them at the market. You might see them at the park. You might see them, somewhere. They cannot avoid you. And this is what I'm focusing on here, okay? Is local government, because that's where we can easily access government that has a really big impact on your quality of life. That's how we refer to it in local government. What we do at local government affects your quality of life of where you live or where you work. So if you want to see impact, get involved with your local government. Okay. So if you say you're looking at a website and you see these little tidbits about a council member that's your representative. They're a member of the planning organization. They're a member of the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network, the Waco McLennan County Bar Association, member of the Baylor Law School faculty. They supervise law students serving veterans, first responders, and children, and is married to Jennifer, the director of the Armstrong Browning Library. They have two children. Now, if you saw that about something, you read that about someone, do you think you might be able to meet that person and strike up a conversation with them using your wonderful relationship skills as a social worker? Absolutely. I'm sure you could find something in common with that person, right? Yes, thank you, Crystal. Absolutely, you can. And this is a real person. This is Waco, Texas, City Councilman Josh Bordered. I just went randomly based on the cities that you all come from. And I just chose three different people, fairly at random, not totally at random, but fairly at random. So here's another person, council member. She's a tenants' rights attorney, single mom, housing justice advocate, and lifelong resident of District 14. She's the daughter of undocumented immigrants, a public transit rider, former teen mom, working class Angelino, who has navigated the challenges of poverty. Um, she's defended truck drivers against theft, like her father experienced. She wants to tackle homelessness, guarantee dignified housing, fight for climate action. Pretty impressive, huh? If you saw this, some of you might say, oh my God, I got to meet this person. Absolutely, right? This is Los Angeles City Council member Isabel Jurado. She was just elected to the LA City Council. There she is. I think she's the first Filipina. I'm Filipino. I think she's the first Filipina elected to the LA City Council. Okay, one more. Here's a city council member I found. She was born to Indian immigrant parents. Her family's experiences with discrimination post 9/11 fuels her mission to foster healthier and more vibrant communities through her public service work. As a recognized expert in public health, she focuses on risk behavior prevention, alleviating health disparities, and prevention of child maltreatment. In 2021, she made history as the first South Asian American woman elected to the Columbia City Council, right? Very impressive, but a lot of issues there that you might say, hey, I want to talk to her about some of these things. I want to find out more about her public health and public service work. She is Columbia, South Carolina City Councilwoman Dr. Aditi Brussels. There she is, right? So these are just three people, but there are thousands and thousands of elected city council members across the country who are just like these three people. They have lives. They have interesting lives. They have lives of many of them of service, and they want to contribute to their communities. We should be there helping them to contribute to their communities from our point of view so that they can access the resources of government to provide services and programs that will help the people that we serve together in our communities. So my first, so one thing of advice that I would give you is assume that everyone in local government, whether they're elected, whether they're a staff person, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's your supervisor, or anyone in community, the pastor at your church or your faith-based organization, folks at the Rotary Club, whoever, all these people, these are all potential allies of yours. They're in the public, they're in government, they're in your communities, they're in your neighborhoods, they're in your agencies and organizations. Everyone is a potential ally. We need to get out and we need to talk to them. We need to engage them and figure out what's important to them, and can we agree on some common goals and issues that we want to work on together. Okay. So and one thing that I'm a bit dismayed about with the division that we have, because I think everyone would agree that there's a lot of division in our country and in our world today. And that is because, unfortunately, we're not looking in the mirror and we're also being divisive, right? If you don't agree with me on certain things, I'm going to cancel you. If you're not in my party, the same party that I'm registered to, I don't talk to you anymore. I don't follow you on Instagram. I don't follow you on Facebook. I won't take any texts from you, right? Um, I don't think that jives with our values as social workers because, we do value the dignity and worth and value of human beings. Do we not? That matters whether they are Democrat or Republican, whether they are unhoused or have mental health issues, or they're poor, or they're rich, or they're MAGA, or they're Republicans, or whoever it is. These are all people, okay? And I'm telling you, I've had interactions. I've had to, my former congresswoman, who's a Republican, and had some pretty MAGA views that she was very public about. I found out while she was in Congress a couple years ago that she was supporting a bill that would in the federal government, in the Congress, that would actually help social workers gain additional to be able to um, serve more people through hospitals and medical facilities, and that they could get higher reimbursement for for that work. So I was in a dilemma. I said, "Well, how can I help this congresswoman when I know I don't agree with her on a lot of things?" But guess what? She wanted to do something for us as social workers. So it really would not be responsible for me to say, you know what? I'm not going to help her to try to get this bill passed because she's a Republican. Sometimes you have to work with what you have. And sometimes there are people on the other side of the aisle. Maybe there are people that don't agree with you on 99% of the things that you talk about, but there's one thing that you can both agree on that's going to be helpful. I think it's worth it. Okay. So we do, that's why I say assume that because you never know. You might need help from people who don't agree with you on other things. But if something's very important to you, you want to make sure that you have the opportunity to have allies. Okay. And then once it's all about for us, right, engaging civically and politically in the way that I'm talking about. It's really about managing relationships over time, right? So don't, and this really came out of, and many of you who are social work student who were social work students or are know that many chapters in NASW, National Association of Social Workers, we have in our chapters, usually each chapter has some type of a lobby day where they go to the state capitol and they lobby their legislators on bills that are going through the state government, and we have that in California. I've been going to that for years. But my frustration with that is because we have not that we have tons of students that go, because that's not frustrating. That's awesome. We have tons of students that go to our event. But what happens after they leave Sacramento? Nothing. They go, they make a pitch to the legislator, then they go home and nothing else happens. Well, that's not a relationship. That's a drive-by, right? That's just like, oh, I'm going to stop in your office and I'm going to tell you what I think. Bleh, okay, and then I'm going to go home and never talk to you about it again. That's not a relationship. What I'm talking about here is managing a relationship over time with people in your community, with city staff, and yes, even with elected officials. And I know there are people on this call, like my good friend Anjanette, who has developed relationships with elected officials, and my friend Amanice, who's on, right? It can be done as a social worker, right? And in fact, we can do it because we have the skills to do that. Okay. And just to let you know, I alluded to this earlier, that um, you have leverage because you vote. And even if you don't vote, if you're not eligible to vote, right, you still have leverage because you know people that vote, right? Elected officials aren't going to look you up and see if you're a voter before they meet with you. No, they don't have time to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to say, well, if Angela's going to come and visit me, I'm going to sit down with her because she lives in my district, and I'm going to assume that she's a voter. But at the very least, even if you don't vote, you know people that vote. So they will not turn you away. Believe me, they won't turn you away. Okay. May be difficult to get an appointment with them, but they won't turn you away. Okay. Once you catch them. And but besides being a voter or potential voter or knowing voters, you have other things that you can give to these elected officials in your developing a relationship with them, right? And that is, a lot of people because you work with people, you work with other social workers, you work with people, maybe even people that live in the district. And what does that mean to the elected official? Is it means more votes. Can you introduce them to more people? Can you bring them to your agency and show them the great work that you're doing in their district? I don't know why social workers don't do more of that. Now I'm telling you, maybe I'm putting some bugs in your ear here, right? Why don't you invite an elected official, local elected official to your agency and give them a tour of your facility and show them the great work that you do? Why does that benefit them? Well, you know what? They're going to take their phone, they're going to take some pictures, they're going to put it on their website. They're going to say, look at what I did. Look at where I am. I'm at a local social service agency that does this great work in my community, right? That is a win for them and it's a win for you because now you're developing a relationship and showing this elected official that you have something of value that you can give to them because at some point you're going to want to ask something from them to give to you and to your community and to your and to your clients that'll be of value to them. Okay. I know it sounds like quid pro quo, and it is. That's how it works, right? That's how it works. You give something, eventually you're going to ask for something back. It happens in all our relationships in the public, right? So, but besides those very specific uh, things of value that you can give to an elected official, you know what I've found is this really valuable to them is treating them like people, treating them with respect, listening to them, understanding their concerns, giving them a pat on the back when they do something good, right? In my 12 years uh, of being on the city council, it's very rare that someone ever said to me, thank you for doing what you did on the city council, or thanks for voting for this, or it's a thankless job because most people that want to come and talk to me are pissed off about something. And if you instead of and imagine as an elected official, I mean, you're shopping at the market for your kids because you got to make dinner tonight in the evening, and a constituent comes to you and starts being like Leslie Knope would say in Park and Rec, that they care very loudly in your face about something, right? After a while, it kind of wears on you because I'm a person just like everybody else, right? So even if you came to say to an elected official, say, "Hey, I like what you're doing, or I respect the fact that you want to serve our community. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing because guess what? I want to help." No one has ever said to me, "I want to help do something in my community." If you just did that and said, invited someone out to coffee, learned about what they do and where they might need help, and you say, if there's something that piques your interest, you say, you know what, I want to help. I'll tell you, you have a lifelong friend in that elected official. And believe me, I've, that's part of managing the relationship is you have to keep that relationship going. It's not just, oh, show up to an office one day and then that's it. Never see them again and then vote maybe in the future. Okay. So, you got to maintain that and manage that relationship. Okay, and I know we're running a little bit short on time because I promised about an hour and a half, but I do have one exercise I'd like you to go through, and we'll cut a little bit short so that we'll have some time at the end to finish off. And I know a couple of you are already signing off. So I want you to think for just a minute of everything that I've talked about already today and that you've talked about maybe in at the beginning with other folks that are on this that are participating in this workshop. What opportunities do you see? What opportunities do you see? Okay, for yourself. All right. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to put us into one last breakout room and I'm going to ask all of you to share with each other what uh, what opportunities you see for yourself as a result of what we talked about today. Okay? So I'll give you about 5 minutes to discuss, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap things up. Here we go.
No. Well, Victor, I was just saying how getting people, community organizing is some of the hardest work ever to get people engaged. So expanding our scope beyond social workers and just trying it from every angle possible.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Harmonies. I'm so glad you could participate and be a part of this morning.
Oh, me too. And I think I'm trying to model. And I was telling another dad who was saying, "You're really taking care of business." I said, "Yeah, I fold laundry on calls. I make food. Like I want my voice and ears at the table, and we come as we do. So Zoom makes that possible."
Exactly. Exactly. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. I think everyone's back now from their breakout room. So I hope you had good conversations and good connections and making connections. I saw email addresses going back and forth in the chat, so that's great. Um, and I want you to put your answer into the chat from your last breakout room conversation. What is one idea that stood out? What's one idea that stood out in your conversation versus regarding the opportunities available to you? So if you can go ahead and put that in the chat, I would appreciate it. What's one idea that stood out in your conversations? Okay. Yeah, it would be great. Yeah, we definitely need to reconnect in some way. Relational building, making alliances, meeting with your elected officials. Yeah, where you live and where you work, right? They're both, right? So if you're concerned about the clients that you serve in a particular area, geographic area, you need to talk to the representatives of that area where your clients are. Absolutely. So great, excellent, very good. So again, if you have any other questions that you would like to ask, that you would like me to answer offline, I'm going to collect them off the chat and I will respond to all of you in a general email that I send out to everyone that was registered, as well as the link I will send you the link to the recording so that you can view that. And I'm also going to put into the chat. I just put in the chat. And this is something to leave you with. I'll send this out as an attachment as well to everyone that registers. It's an article that I wrote about 10 years ago. And it was published in Social Work Journal. It was my kind of my initial attempt at trying to um, identify ways that we could be more involved in our communities, we as social workers, right? So, um, and I think it might be a good template for you if you want to take a chance to read over it, and it might spur on more ideas for you in terms of different ways that you can get involved. So, I hope that that's helpful for you. And I also want to offer to all of you uh, to invite you. I'm really excited about this. The Social Impact Academy that I'll be um, recruiting and a new cohort of this academy, the Social Impact Academy, Civic Engagement for Change. I'm going to begin it next month for Social Work Month. Okay, that's when our next cohort's going to begin. It's a 3-month program. There's 6 classes every other week. I'm going to be using the same kind of methodology that you experienced today in the workshop. A lot of group work, a lot of discussion amongst the members of the cohort to kind of to recognize and unleash the power that you all have to get out there and to engage and to create positive change and social justice in your communities. And it's also going to involve an alumni community network. So those of us that have gone through this cohort, you'll be a part of that alumni group so that you can amplify your power with the support of others from all around the country. So we're gonna, and you'll see on the slide here, these are the kind of the objectives we're gonna be working on, many of which we talked about today. So for some of you that want to continue on this and to go a little bit deeper, reach out to me. You can email me directly. There's my website. You could also follow me on LinkedIn and as well as on Instagram. And if you go on my website, you'll find information about the Social Impact Academy as well. We can set up an appointment to chat to see if it's something that I can help you with in getting more civically and politically engaged in your community. I would love to help. That is my mission in this last part of my career is really to promote and strengthen our leadership as social workers so that we can drive civic engagement and political influence by powering individuals, organizations, and communities to collaborate for social justice. That's my mission, and I would love to help you to be more engaged in your communities. So thank you very much, everyone that has participated. I hope you found it useful. And if you want to continue the conversation, I'd be happy to do that. I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day and weekend, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.